our network connection here?
Yes, you got to ask Greg. I can't remember.
Oh, I'm sorry. I could have asked the expert. Is it Bonita LAN?
Yeah, Bonita LAN.
The secret code is?
Yes. I'll type it in. I could tell you yours, but you won't remember.
Okay.
Okay. Just ask it.
Good evening. I'd like to call Monday, July 11, 2016, Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District's regular board meeting to order. Please rise.
I'd like to begin this evening having a moment of silence for 8 firemen who have lost their lives in the month of June, but also among the Bonita family, Armand Cazadilla, the tragic loss of his stepson early Sunday morning, so let's remember them also. Dear God, we come to you today. We thank you for the privilege that you give us to live in freedom each day. And Lord, we thank you for the blessings we have. For those that have gone through loss this past month, as families have lost firemen, I pray, Lord, that you will strengthen them and give them comfort. And Lord, today also we pray you'll be with the Cazadilla family in this loss and their family. Lord, give them comfort, give them strength in this time of need. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any public comment on agenda items this evening?
Yes, Alex Grant, 11851 East Cherry Street. The only thing that public on the agenda I have is the number 11, new business, said the millage rate. Now, what I have, I don't know if you get Fire Apparatus Journal, but it has there a profile of Harrisonburg, Virginia. They have a population of 50,000. They're located on the interstate highway system, and they have 2 universities there, and so they have a similar population to Bonita Springs, and the area is about half the size of our area, but it's still a fairly decent area, perhaps a little more compact than we are. But what I wanted to say is they happen to have 4 fire stations, and their engine companies, I think they have 4 engine companies and 2 ladder companies, plus the heavy rescue unit and hazardous materials unit like we have. So I don't know what their millage rate is, anything like that, but I know that they have 81 firefighters on the 3 shifts. Like, you know, we have 3 shifts, they have 3 shifts, 24 hours on, 48 hours off, and also they have 10 volunteers on their department. I just thought I'd mention it. I don't know what their millage rate is, but it might be interesting to compare the millage rate of Harrisonburg, Virginia with Bonita Springs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment on agenda items? First item of business, I need a motion to approve the regular board minutes from June 13, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Need a motion for the special meeting minutes from June 27th, 2016.
So move.
Second it.
Discussion?
Excuse me, I think I have a comment on that, but I didn't bring my notes. That was a meeting I did not attend, is that correct?
Correct.
But I'm listed as one of the attendees.
Okay, I didn't pick up on that. I
didn't
thought,
either.
I thought it said that, the-
I can take
it
it off.
showed in the notes that it was 4-0 and,
I think you meant to put Mr. Lyles on there for that.
okay.
Yeah, that was just an error, if we want to approve it,
With the
pending the
change.
change.
Yeah.
Okay, well, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need one motion for the approval of the June 2016 and current expenditures and ACH payments, the acknowledgement of the financial report, and acknowledgement of wire transfers and transfers between accounts.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Going to go off track here a little bit. We have a special guest in the audience this evening, Pam Hancock from PGIT. I'm going to let Chief Daigle introduce her, if you would.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen. We are being offered a what they call matching training program, incentive program. Mrs. Hancock is here to offer the district and give us a $5,000, I guess we'd call it a rewards for the boards actively engaging in purchasing the second set of bunker gear for the firefighters. They recognized that the district is proactive in pursuing firefighter safety. And so unbeknownst to me, we qualified for this $5,000 check from PGIT. So we'd like to welcome Mrs. Hancock.
Thank you guys very much for applying for the grant. We've been able to keep this grant up for a couple of years now, and we're glad that you guys received it, applied for it and received it. It is with your workers' comp insurance carrier, with PGIT or preferred, as we like to be called. And I would like to present this $5,000 check to the chief and get some photos if you don't mind.
Awesome.
No, I was gonna take it for you if you wanted to.
No, no. It's all about you guys.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much.
Is that a grand piece for each of us?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hancock. Not very often that we get money from an insurance company. That's awesome. Absolutely. Okay, moving on to the next item, disposition of assets. Need a motion to approve the disposition report.
So move.
Need a second?
I'll
anyone?
second it.
Any discussion? It's pretty well self-explanatory. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is years of service pin presentations. Chief?
Yes, we have 2 years of service pins to hand out today. I don't believe one of them is here. First is Facilities Coordinator, Mr. Michael Boucard, who's been with the district for 10 years. I did want to say something about Mr. Boucard. He was initially hired for the fire district to paint hydrants. However, through the years, his area of expertise, we found out, and his experience was in facilities maintenance, basically being a facilities manager. So through the course of the years, he has expanded his career to be in charge of all of our facilities and basically analyzes and reports to Deputy Chief Sanchez what needs to be done to the station's paint. He does all the bidding, bids out all of the landscaping, any kind of other work for our generators and those sorts of things. So we just wanted to recognize Mr. Picard for his outstanding 10 years of service here with the Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District. Secondly is Finance Coordinator Beverly Gervasi. Did I say that right? It's my pronunciation. But Beverly's been here 1 year. She started off as a temporary employee. However, she picked up very quickly the organization needs in her job. And she took over Lisa's former spot when Tony left and Lisa moved into Tony's position. She took over Lisa's spot, and she's been invaluable. Very, very quick study, and does an outstanding job, and is a fantastic member of the administrative team. And we're very happy to have her on board, and wanted to congratulate you on the milestone of 1 year, Beverly. So congratulations. We'll take a picture with you.
Congratulations. Next item on the agenda is Commissioner's business. Commissioner Murphy?
Not tonight.
Commissioner Casilla?
Yes, just one thing I have is, two things I have. Number one is next month I will not be here. I'll be on vacation, but I'd like to be able to be on by phone if possible, so I at least can hear what's going on. And number two, I want to thank the union for a great parade on 4th of July. Thanks again for inviting us. I always have a great time. Thank you very much. I know it's a lot of work.
Commissioner Lyles? Do you have anything?
No.
Commissioner McCourt?
Thank you. I just want to make a statement because I know that I have missed your last two budget meetings, and I wanted to give you my thoughts as to where we're going. I think today we're about ready to take a historic step in the wrong direction. Will defy all logic and remove the opposition to the demonstrated need of our community. Our annual report clearly admits that 63% of our calls are medical calls, yet we respond with firefighters and paramedics on fire trucks. Nearly 4,000 of the 6,000 calls we receive are medical calls, and only 135, or about 2%, are classified as fires. If you remove the false alarms, the false calls, the service calls, the good intention calls from the 6,000 total, you find that 90% of what we do is medical. We still respond to every call with a fire truck. Today, we will take the initial step to approve a budget that calls for 2 new fire stations and proposes at least 1 new fire truck, as I see it. Just last month, we reported that medical calls increased by 13%, while fire calls decreased by 9%. At this point, I think we should be partnering with Lee County to improve medical response in our community. Instead of that, we're budgeting money to take further court action against them, and I think this is a critical mistake. We should be appropriating money on the budget to help the county finance mobile ambulance response to improve response times in the several areas of the community where we need that kind of support. Instead of building 2 new fire stations, we should be budgeting money to buy additional ambulance service from Lee County. For example, the folks on Little Harkery Island have been discussing the notion of taking up a collection among the property owners and financing a purchase of ambulance time from the county to be full-time on the island during the busy season. So this should give you some idea of where the folks are thinking, or what they're thinking. And it just appears to me as we move into this budget, and I hope we will whittle some off of it, but it appears to me that we're just headed in the wrong direction. So I want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. On that same note, we made a motion at last month's meeting to proceed with possibly moving forward with our COPCN application, and since that time, I have received information that Lee County is putting in their budget the possibility, it's early stages, but they're putting into their budget the possibility of us going from 2.5 ambulances to maybe 4 ambulances, and I think that at this point it would be prudent for us to table the motion that we made last month to proceed with our COPCN application until such time we see if the county follows through on what appears to be an early budget request. We won't know until the final budget gets approved in late September. If it does, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how we get ambulances to people as long as we have enough units here to do the job. It appears that the county is taking a step in the right direction to at least increase the number of units, and I think that administration will follow that very closely. But at this point, I would like to entertain a motion to table the motion that we did last month on our COPCN application, if everybody's in agreement with that.
I'd be glad to make that motion.
I think the motion should be a motion to rescind our action, and I would make a motion to rescind.
Okay, we can rescind it or table it either way. Okay.
I'll second that since I made the motion initially. I'd like
Okay.
to second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, I think we're all on the same page that we need ambulances. We know that, but our charter, everything we do, we are required by law to provide fire services. It's just part of the package parcel. I don't think there's anybody up here that doesn't agree with the fact that we should be doing our own transport, and there should be more ambulances here. But we'll see where that goes. I think this is the next best thing. Commissioner Murphy?
On Friday, the Bonita Leadership Group went over to Lee Memorial's facility at Coconut Point, where they gave us a demonstration as to what kind of facility they're going to be building on Coconut Road in 41. It's going to be quite a facility, and they demonstrated that there will be another ambulance station at that facility.
We've been told that. We're hoping that that isn't going to be one of the ambulances that they count for Bonita. It would be a good place to draw from because of the location between Estero and Bonita. But I think administration is going to stay on top of that, and they've had a couple of meetings with Lee County at this point, and I think that's a good thing. Assuming that they stay on the path that they're going, I think that's a win. Maybe the chief would like to comment on that at this point.
Yes, we do have some information, judging by Lee County's budget and some conversations I've had with some officials, that they will be, should this budget pass, that they will be providing, there will be 4 ambulances more or less in the Bonita Springs area in conjunction with the building of the standalone ER. What that will do is, at this point in time, we have 5 stations. That'll be 4 ambulances in Bonita, which is what we had proposed to put in Bonita. At the time of our application, it was 3 to 4. So there will be 4 ambulances in the Bonita Springs area funded by Lee County EMS in the near future. When I say 4, that means 3.5. The half stations, they still do the peak staffing down at Station 2, Little Hickory Island area. They don't believe that that warrants a full-time ambulance at this point, but they may determine that that area would require a full-time ambulance to meet the needs. But an important point when we look at the EMS system, they count us. We are part of their EMS system, the county EMS system. We do not have our own EMS system here in Bonita Springs. The county controls how EMS is delivered in this area. As a fire control and rescue district, the only responsibility by state statute we have is to provide fire control and rescue districts to the citizens of Bonita Springs. We are not tasked with providing EMS. The board does so in conjunction with Lee County to provide that service, which obviously we know is a significant part of the job we do. But we work in conjunction with Lee County's EMS system to provide the service. And it seems to me that they are recognizing the need for more ambulances in this area and are proceeding to heed the consult of this board and the needs and the wants of this board at this time. We're not really sure if it's going to be followed through with, but of course, we are going to be on top of it, and we're going to be looking at the service that they provide, the enhanced service that they provide, their response times, their call loads, and I assure you that we will let the board know when they improve, if they improve, and how well they improve with their ambulance response. Not just their medical response, because as you know, we provide 100% of the medical response in Bonita Springs. They provide 100% of the ride to the hospital at this point in time, and the medical response as well. So I hope that explains a little bit of what's happening here in Bonita Springs with the medical response in all areas. If there's any questions, I will be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you. Next item, old business, commissioner education and certification requirements. Last month we touched on the fringes of it. Now's a good time to bring up what we want to do as a board, whether we want to make the requirements more stringent than what the state requires now. Pretty good chance they're going to make the ethics requirement law at some point in the near future. It's already been made law for several elected positions. For some reason, special districts have been left out of it at this point, but I'd be surprised if that doesn't come through, which is simply a four-hour ethics class. But we had some discussion to do this job and to do it well. There's a lot more to know than what we can pick up walking around the station. And there's a lot at the political, there's a lot at governmental rules and regulations that don't necessarily pertain to administration, they pertain to the elected leaders. And I know, and I can speak for myself, but I know there's 3 of us up here that have been certified. I can only speak for myself that I've been on the board almost 8 years. I've been certified. Now, it took 2 years to get it, and I've been certified for 6 with continuing education every year, and I find it invaluable to do this job, and I'm not sure if we should make it a requirement or we should make it, at least strongly suggest that anybody who's on this board within the first year or 2 of being on the board become certified.
Being that I was just certified last month, and the fact that how much education I received from being certified, I think it should be a requirement. I mean, I don't see doing this job without having that certification. It's part of the leadership, it's part of education of what the laws are, it's a part of everything of being a commissioner. And I believe I'd like to make a motion that it be part of our rules and regulations or our requirements, that within your first 4 years of office that you receive your certification. It's too important.
Well, before we accept the motion on it, I think, well, I guess we could do a motion in a second and do more discussion.
I'll give a second.
I want to make sure that, A, that we have the legal right to do it. Okay, I think we need to run that past, now that we seem to have, you know, an agreement here that maybe we should make it a requirement. First question, before we move on with this, it should be run past our attorneys to see, A, if we can do it, and B, if we do it, what are the enforcement side of it if somebody decides not to do it. I think that I'm not one that likes passing rules and you have to do this. I would think that from the standpoint of doing this job correctly, I think it serves us all well to learn as much as we can about what we do, and I can't emphasize enough how important it's been for me personally, and I'm fairly sure that Commissioner Casilla and Commissioner Murphy, who just became certified at this last conference in June, they've streamlined the process now. It used to take 2 years. They've now streamlined it so you can conceivably get it done in one. And I think that, again, if we do we want to make it mandatory, or do we want to make it a strong suggestion? I think that's still a quandary for me, because if somebody doesn't want to do it, I'm not sure that we can force them. But I think that if we put some type of a guideline in place that the district will support and will pay the expenses to go to the we're a member of FASD anyway, so it's not that expensive to go to these quarterly conferences, quarterly meetings, and around the state, and do 4 days at the annual conference to finish it.
Chairman Lohan?
Yes, sir.
I certainly would agree that I'm sure that this is a very important and probably a great opportunity for us. I was under the impression that there already was a strong recommendation to do it. At least that was the impression I got from you about a year ago when we talked about it. So I don't have any objection to the program. I think it's a good program, and I'm sure it will be worthwhile. I don't feel that we have the right to make it mandatory. I think you're dealing with elected officials here, and I don't think that we may wind up looking foolish. So I think it's important that we run it by our attorneys
Right.
first.
I agree with that. Part of the requirements are already mandatory at the state level under a new law that passed this past year. It just hasn't included every form of government yet, but normally past experience will show once they've made a requirement for certain parts of government, the people that do have to do it are going, well, how come they don't have to do it? So I'm fairly sure, and having some conversations with the legislative committee and with legal, that it's probably coming back that it will be a requirement, but I think it's a 4 hours a year on ethics, but we can, whether or not we want to make that stronger so that we are better leaders and we're more in tune with what's going on, because things do change on a regular basis. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but
3 areas that we were certified in was ethics, sunshine law, and strategic planning. All 3 of those areas have been changing and evolving, and it's something we need to be aware of. And I'm very proud of the certificate that Commissioner Casilla and I received last month. We put in 28 hours of work to do that.
and there's 15 hours every 2 years of continuing education. It used to be 35 hours and 15 hours every 2 years, but the courses are, some of the courses are intense. They're not, you know, you don't just sit there and say, oh, I can just breeze through this. They go over a lot of things that can keep you out of jail. It can keep you out of situations that you might not realize that you're doing something wrong. And on top of that, it definitely keeps you, and there's a legislative process that anything that's affecting FASD as a whole, anything that's affecting us as special district governance. They keep us in the loop, and basically some things could very easily fall through the cracks, which this part of this education does not allow that to happen. I think it's priceless.
Since I made the motion, I'd like to just amend my motion to include the fact that if we check with our attorney, and if, as long as it's legal, I still will go with my motion as long as it's legal and our attorney agrees with us. I think it's too important. It's not hard, it's work, but it's part of our job.
May I, sir?
Yes.
It's been my understanding that the board cannot place any additional burden on the board that is more stringent than what the state law specifically says. It can be a recommendation, however, I do not believe that it can be placed. I mean, I'll double check with our attorney, but that is my understanding.
Well, there's been different opinions on that, because I was told by an attorney that you could do it, but the enforcement side of it would be difficult.
Yes, sir.
You can always make your governance stronger than what the state requires. It's just the enforcement side. If somebody
Yes.
says, no, I'm not going to do it, it doesn't have any teeth. So if something doesn't have any teeth, my feeling is, why bother? You know, why make it mandatory? But I would think that it would be something that, you know, anybody that does this job, and not just now, but in the future, I would think that it would be incumbent on them to make sure that they were doing the best job they knew how to do. So I don't know if we want to just hold off on the motion until you check to see.
Yeah, I can rescind my motion.
Yeah, let's. I think that's probably the best route. I know we've been talking about this for a long time, but we'll wait to hear back from you. Next
Yes, sir.
item is new business. To set, we have to, by requirement, we have to set the not to exceed millage rate for fiscal year 2016, 2017. That simply means that whatever that rate is, it cannot go higher, it can go lower, but we have to set a maximum at this meeting.
Yes, gentlemen, the recommendation from the administration was to set the not-to-exceed millage rate at 2.35, which is our current millage rate.
Motion?
I'd like to recommend that we accept the rollback rate as a starting point.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second.
I'll move we accept the staff's recommendation, because we do have a chance to bring that back down.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 No.
Frank? No. Yes or no? No. And the next item, Chief's reports. Chief Joe Daigle.
What was that vote? 4-1? 3-2?
3-2.
Chief's report, sir?
Chief's report, yes.
Yes, I only have really one item. As most of you understand and know, that the facilities operational and facilities report is being completed and just has began its initial phase with Fitch, who was the company that we have selected to provide the service. Dr. Knight was here last week, and I believe met with myself, met with the staff, and I believe he met with the commission to discuss the nature of the report, and that they will look at our fire and rescue deployment models, our stations, our facilities, our staffing, and to determine and make some suggestions on where we are and some potential outcomes of where we should be with our deployment of fire rescue services. So we look forward to the study. We think it's going to help us out and take a fresh look from an outside company, professional company that will help us determine which direction we're going in and if we are in fact on the right path, or some alternative deployment strategies to provide enhance our service to make it either more efficient or better than what we are. So I just wanted to make that comment, and that study should take approximately 6 months for completion. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Chief Greg DeWitt. Deputy Chief Sanchez.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Last month, I had the privilege of working with Deputy Chief Frank Giuliano on his last assignment before his retirement. That was the recertification of our burn building in the training center we have here. It was special because of that and the fact that we had an extensive amount of damage we had to repair, which was the first time ever for this building. As you can see, we passed. What this building means to us: it was built approximately 8 years ago. Over that time, we've had over 800 attendees attend classes here, over 100 classes, different types of classes. This building basically gives us more than just the ability to train on fires. It also has other capabilities such as roof operations simulator. You can see crews going through it, forcible entry, props. There's 2 throughout the building. The props basically allow us to save money in the long run because we're not destroying doors after door. You can use the same prop over and over again to accomplish the goals that we set for our guys. Another thing we do is search and rescue in it, basically build the confidence of the firefighters when they're doing this. Ground ladder operations, guys become more comfortable using ladders and operating off of them. Also, what this allows us to do in the long run is it keeps costs down for training. All the training is done in-house as opposed to sending our firefighters out to different schools, different classes, different training centers. Now, the response matrix in the county has changed where there's more overlay. Different departments respond together to different calls. And with that, you can't just do a tabletop type of training. You have to actually get in the trenches and work. And what this allows is multiple agencies to come in and work through those scenarios, all those different type of responses that they will be doing together. Another thing that this does basically builds teamwork with the adjoining firefighter agencies, fire department agencies, but also with the citizens we have here in Bonita. We have a program called CERT here that's over 200 members strong, and basically it allows the citizens to partake in first aid type of functions. Now, when we have scenarios, live fire scenarios out here, we use them to set up our rehab, which is an immense benefit to us, and it allows them to practice their first aid skills. You see some different members we have there. So what it takes to put this together. Here in Bonita, we follow the NFPA 1403 standard, rules and regulations, but because we're Bonita, we also take it to the next level, and we also have our own SOGs that we put in place here. As you can see, it takes an immense amount of people to coordinate the live burns we have in this building. Once we get everything established, safety is our #1 priority here. Here in this shot, you can see everybody checking in and out before they enter a hot zone. Now, There are those individuals that like to push the rules every now and then, but
Retirees?
regardless who they are, when your time is up, you cannot continue to go into a burning building because you think you're someone named Greg DeWitt. Basically, we have a limit to how far you can be in a burning building, and Chief DeWitt is one of those that likes to push his limits, which in the long run it's good. At any time, we can always expect different type of guests here. The media, they're always wanting to know why this training facility is so special. Basically, because we have everything in a one-stop shop. It gives us access to high-rise, our tower does, burn building, all those other scenarios that we can do here. So that's another benefit that we have. As you can see, we've always got visitors from neighboring departments that use the facility also, along with us. And they're always gracious to be allowed to use this. Chief Daigle there with one of the PIOs from a different department. So over the long run, this building has had over 3,800 hours in it. Back to what we were talking about in the beginning, there was a lot of damage done to this building that took a lot of repairs with a short deadline. I just wanted to say there's some of the damage beforehand. There's our in-house welder, Randy Werstein. That crew right there, Station 4B shift, and Battalion Chief Brown, there's Lieutenant Brode, Firefighter Werstein, probationary firefighters, Boston, and Scheffler, basically worked through the weekends, through a holiday, which is normally a day off for the firefighters, to get this building back in shape for us. It just kind of shows the teamwork that we have here as far as when everybody sets their mind on one goal, one project, it's all in, no matter what we do. So I want to thank them. I want to thank you guys because you guys are the ones that make this possible. And that's it for my first presentation.
Nice job. Good job.
Any questions?
I did want to add a few points to what Deputy Chief Sanchez does. He's doing a great job assimilating to the administrative position that he has earned. This building is so important to the fire rescue service in Lee County. Before this building was put in place by the commissioners, everyone had to go because in order to do live fire, you have to meet a set. If somebody gets hurt in one of our live fire drills and we are not following the NFPA standards, we're liable. The officers are liable. But now that we have this building, we have live fire instructors all trained and everybody can go into these fires safely. We used to get people hurt often, all throughout the country in training. And the fire service determined that that's a waste. It's inappropriate to get hurt during training. So by having this in Bonita Springs, we used to have to truck everybody up literally all the way to Fort Myers Training Academy because they had the only live fire training center in Lee County. And in order to do that, we had to take engines out of service, send them all the way up to literally downtown Fort Myers, the center there. Everybody has to go through it. Everybody has to go through the county-wide training. Every firefighter. And the reason is when something catastrophic happens in our county, we all show up together. We all have to know the tactics and strategies from a plane wreck to a tractor trailer rollover, you name it, and we all have to be able to work under the same command and control and know the exact same methodologies that we use together. We got it. The right hand has to know what the left hand's doing, and for us as commanders, we have to know that we're sending our troops. I have to know that we're sending our troops to another district that is trained sufficiently to what our standards are. And we set those standards specifically in the Lee County Training Co-op and the training we do out here. And that building is what makes it happen. And the men and women who go through the training to do that is the reason why the Lee County Fire Service is in the shape it is in today. So I wanted to thank the board for allowing us to, in funding this particular training site. So thank you.
All set.
Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Thank you. Deputy Chief Scott?
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to highlight a couple calls that we ran with Marine 22 in the last couple weeks. You've probably seen them in the news. One was a boat fire. If you heard about the boat, I have some pictures to show you, but the boat that ran aground in Wiggins Pass, and then when they were trying to get it unstuck and offload, it caught on, exploded, had an injury and caught on fire. And then the other one was the paddleboarder the other day. So these are just a few pictures. This was a call, both of these were mutual aid. This is all part of the MERT response. We talk a lot about that in here when you all ask questions. What's MERT? What do we do? How do we contribute to the system? Because individual fire departments have one unit, and it takes more than one unit, just like on any one of these calls, we all respond to a given area. We're part of the South MERT responding unit with the Coast Guard, FWC, Sheriff's Department. So this was the first, this was the boat fire that I mentioned in Wiggins Pass. This is just some of the pictures they took on scene after the fire was put out. Us and North Collier both responded to this call, and I think we put 25 gallons of foam, AFFF foam on this to extinguish the fire, along with North Collier, excuse me. There's a picture of us putting water on the fire. There's a picture of what it looked like afterwards when they attempted to tow this back in. What happened was the captain, I believe, it was a brand new boat, if you didn't hear the story, and he was coming into Wiggins Pass, which is treacherous. Very little depth in there. They have to dredge it fairly often. Obviously, it's due. He came right through where the markers were, ran it aground, hit the prop, the hardware, tore a hole in the bottom of the boat, and ran it aground. And it sat for almost a week when they were salvaging it and offloading the fuels when it exploded and caught on fire. And there was one injury, I believe, on that. Okay. The other one was just Saturday morning, and that was the paddleboarder off of Fort Myers Beach.
Deputy Chief Scott, one question.
Yes.
Can you explain why it's important to put out a fire and the difference between letting a boat burn or not?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually some trains of thought on that about extinguishing and not, but if you can back up a little bit. Over the years, we have unsuccessfully, as a fire service, attempted to put some of these boat fires out. We didn't use the proper equipment. In other words, the foam I mentioned, we now use as much foam as we possibly can with the least amount of water. So to go back to what the chief mentioned, we're having more success extinguishing these fires, thus reducing the amount of pollution in the air, into the water. If we can put them out quickly and keep them salvageable, then the tow companies can still get them in, try to salvage some of the boat, and reduce the pollution to the air and the water. So we as the whole MERT response team have changed our tactics slightly and are having some success. And this was one of those, where if we just lobbed water in it before, because of all the fuels involved with the fiberglass and everything in them, we couldn't put them out, and we just filled them with water and they sunk. And that's not a popular thing to do with the environment. So we've had to change the way we do that. So the other, Saturday morning, was the paddleboarder. If you didn't hear that story, there was an individual paddleboarding, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning off Fort Myers. People saw him fall into the water, submerge, and didn't come up. And there was witnesses. Obviously, you know what the beach is like on Saturday morning. So we responded with, here's some of the agencies. You see our boat there. You see Iona McGregor. There's 3 or 4 agencies, plus the Coast Guard was on scene. And I got a kind of a quick story to highlight. We actually put the Iona McGregor dive team on our boat. They had 2 separate areas that they had reported where this person went in the water, and we had 3 on board ours, and Iona's boat had the other. Because the person was witnessed and went immediately under, we spent a lot of our resources looking for them more than on the surface, although a lot of the resources were looking on the surface. Last year, we added a side sonar piece of electronics that we got through the grant, if you all might remember that. That crew reported to me, I just talked to them today and yesterday about this call. They saw the person, the victim, on the bottom with the sonar. They then directed the sheriff's department, who has a more sophisticated, and the other dive team to come over, and under 2 hours from the point of this, when this call started, they located that person. Now, although it was the person was deceased and it was a recovery, there are some, how do I say this delicately, there are some things that come from finding the person quickly, more quickly than waiting several days. It gives some closure to the family and the loved ones of the victim. It also, these searches involve a tremendous amount of resources. The Coast Guard was there, we had air support, Coast Guard helicopters, 5, 6 agencies on scene. So there are benefits to that, and I believe with our equipment and our guys that we help contribute to that. Again, this is all part of this MERT response. We can cover a lot of areas quicker and put in, bring some closure to some of these calls, even though it had an unfortunate outcome. There's the Iona McGregor. Some of our guys were actually free diving, skin diving, assisting, trying to find all as well. And that's about all I have. Any questions on either one of those calls? Yes, sir.
Getting back to the fire on Wiggins Pass.
Yeah.
Do you generate that foam on scene, or is it in a container that you?
It's in a container. We generally carry at least 3 buckets, 5-gallon buckets on the boat. When this call came in, because of the nature of the call, we have the ability to add. So I think they were carrying 5 or 6 5-gallon buckets of that. And what it is, there's a pump on the front of the boat, and by a Venturi effect, you put a, lack of a better term, you put a wand down into the bucket, and it picks that foam up and mixes it with the water and puts it on the fire.
So you got a lot more than 5 gallons, obviously.
Yeah, we had, I think we had 25 or 30 gallons. And that's why we have several boats come too, because we're limited to how much we can carry on each boat. So with those resources all working together, we can put more foam on those quicker and put them out. And it's specifically, that type of foam is specifically made to put out fuel, which boats are almost 100% made of fuel when you add in the fiberglass and all the equipment, all the things on them. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any public comment?
Yes, Alex Grant, 11851 East Terry Street, Bonita Springs. One thing, well, 2 things. One thing is I'd like to rebut Frank Lyles' article, or part of the article, in the July 4th issue of the...
We don't take personal attacks against anybody.
No, it's not a personal attack.
Okay, as long as you understand that.
Not a personal attack.
Okay.
I'm just rebutting. He said in the article, quote, there are 7, or not 8 fire stations in Bonita Fire District. The new stations were recommended in a facilities and operations report completed by an outside consulting firm in 2009. I happen to have the complete 2009 facilities report by Dr. Cohen. And I looked through the entire report this weekend and did not find any mention of the recommendation beyond the 5 fire stations that we already have. That was in the 2009 by the Tri-Data report from 2009. So I have that here. So that is number 1 comment I'd like to make. So I don't know if Commissioner Lyles would like to make a retraction in the paper concerning that. Number 2, I made a suggestion a couple of months ago, and I reiterated it again, but since we're going to have that emergency facility out on via Coconut, and they're going to put an ambulance there, may I make a suggestion that that ambulance will have a scanning thing for heart attack, stroke, cerebral hemorrhage, and for serious accidents. And again, my recommendation would be if this department would kick in, let's say 25% of the cost. If you talk to Estero department, would kick in 25% of that cost. San Carlos Park could kick in 25%, and the county kick in 25%. That would be a benefit for the people in the entire South District, the San Carlos Park, Bonita Springs, and Estero, for these very specialized medical emergencies, priority 1 calls that, no district probably has more than 300 calls a year for, but, and then have a resident physician on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Yeah, Ron Pure, Bonita Springs and Taxpayer Action Group. This is kind of a follow-up. I don't know whether it was a year ago or 2 years ago. Time flies when we're having a good time. That I was in here asking for the commission to consider adopting or getting into establishing a credit line. And I never heard any feedback on that personally and didn't read anything in the newspaper about it, so I'd like to know what the status of that is. I know that one commissioner commented that they can be hairy propositions, and I think that that person might have been speaking from a business perspective. This is a government perspective. Our credit line is pretty solid, especially in Bonita Springs. I think it would be a benefit to us, and we could minimize the amount of money that you folks now have in your fund balance or reserve kept aside for in the event of an emergency. If people, if there weren't enough money in the bank account, you wouldn't be able to pay employees. I think that's a real stretch. And if that were the case, I'd say our nation at large would be in deep, deep trouble. The other issue was impact fees. Again, haven't heard anything from the chief or any commissioner about that. We're still, I think, 40 or 50% behind what we had established a while ago as being a high point. You reduced them about the year 2010 or 11, and we're at that reduced rate since then. Honestly, one of the commissioners or two of the commissioners said that they knew very little about impact fees, and I'm wondering if anybody's picked up the ball since then to learn about it. We have missed a boat on collecting an awful lot of money over the past 4 or 5 years, considering the development that's gone on in the town. And that's something, of course, that would affect this year's budget. Now, if you choose to stay at the mill rate as is, correct me if I'm wrong, those folks that are down here part-time would be hit for nearly the maximum amount of taxation. In general, their taxes would go about 10%. That's a significant amount of money, and I would hope that you'd show some passion or compassion or empathy for those poor souls that are down here part-time, be it in a $250,000 house or a $2 million penthouse. Significant money. And again, we missed the boat on the impact fee syndrome. if you'd be so kind to address those two issues tonight, I would appreciate it before you adjourn the meeting, so we can get some continuity before we take the next step in your budget process, at least of those two issues. So on that note, I thank you.
Thank you. Administration will answer your questions by email or in touch. We don't do that at public input. Thank you. Any further public input? Call for meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming.